that caught my eye this week. Really quite disturbing, actually. So we're going to talk to Alka, Seghal, Cuthbert about this, who's director of a brilliant organisation called Don't Divide Us, and we'll hear more about that organisation in a minute. But first of all, there's a London-based writer and coach called Africa Brooke. She's 29. She's a writer and mentor and consultant, and she's been told she's not truly black after writing a viral open letter blasting the cult of wokeness and insisting she's not oppressed by her skin colour. Secondly, another story is that civil servants are being taught that Britain is a racist country and white staff should avoid contradicting ethnic minority colleagues. To which the obvious question is, what if they're wrong? Let's talk about this with Alka, Seghal, Cuthbert, who's the director of Don't Divide Us. Alka, I'm probably not going to contradict you, but I would if you're wrong. So, I mean, what do you make, first of all, Alka? Thanks for joining us, by the way, about civil servants being taught Britain is a racist country. White staff should avoid contradicting ethnic minority colleagues.
Well, I think it's very easy to dismiss this as more the kind of woke nonsense, the antics of a minority of ideologues. But I think actually underlying is a much more serious problem about our governance, our democratic governance and democratic accountability within our institutions, because you can see what we have here is almost like a parallel policy. The government sporadically coming out saying one thing, declaring it's going to end unconscious bias training, for example, as Boris Johnson did in 2020. And yet a year later, they're inviting a very well-known academic who's all for this kind of identity politics on race, coming in to speak to the Home Office.
It's fascinating. This particular video is the Department of Levelling Up Housing and Communities, which until recently was run by Michael Gove, who has been a great defender of British values and very anti-woke. The video states, when we become an ally, this primarily means acknowledging that we ourselves are part of society, norm, culture, or a system that is racist. For many of us who are white or white passing, don't really know what that is, meaning that we are often identified as white in public spaces. Now I know. The colour of our skin, our race or ethnicity has not had a negative impact in our lives. We call this white privilege. This is nonsense.
It absolutely is nonsense.
Oh, Alka.
Africa Brooks and Stephen Bartlett, that when, what this shows is that people who are promulgating this belief in white privilege, really the only privilege they're interested in is their own, in telling the rest of us how we should think and feel, really. I mean, imagine telling a non-white person that there's some authentic way of being that is black or brown and that they are not fulfilling it because we don't happen to agree with their political opinion or their political belief.
Call me old-fashioned, but I mean, I've worked with people my entire working life from all backgrounds who are all races, religions, and whatever. And I mean, if someone's wrong, I'm going to tell them they're wrong.
Well, that's because you believe in equality, right? And
yes, I do actually.
And equality means treating somebody with the respect to tell them they're wrong if you think they're wrong, and also being able to hear when they come back at you, and you take responsibility for what you say and what you do, and that way you engage as moral equals with people, and that is how solidarity is built. If you start off with saying you are in a box there as an ally and you are in a box there as a victim or somebody suffering discrimination just because of your skin colour alone, then the actual basis for any equality isn't there.
Well, exactly, and it totally pigeonholes people based on identity of birth. An accident of birth, their identity, and means that they can't be anything else. They can't bring any individuality to these things. It's simply based on their race or what we perceive to be their background, which could be totally different. I mean, I remember I worked at Newsnight many years ago, and we had a young man, a black man, on work experience, and someone said, well, maybe you should work on a story on knife crime, and he said, well, I don't know much about knife crime because I went to Eton.
Well, you've actually raised a really important point here because, centuries ago, people's position in society, their ability to progress was mainly determined by accidents of birth, whether they were in the aristocracy or then by their religious, the religious context they were in. And it's taken people like centuries of struggle, political fighting, intellectual work, through the Enlightenment and beyond to actually gain this level of freedom. And what we're seeing today is the kind of minority voluntarily wanting to take us back.
Yeah.
That kind of determinism.
Alka, just in 30 seconds, tell us what Don't Divide Us is. I know about it, but I want our viewers and listeners to know. Just in 30 seconds, just tell us what Don't Divide Us is as an organisation.
Thank you. We're an organisation challenging these divisive ideas. We have a new report out on the way these policies are being percolated through councils, through lack of attention or through ideological commitment. And they are trying to change our cultural values without full proper discussion. That's why we exist, to challenge those kinds of ideas. So please look us up, support our work.
What's your website?
It's don'tdivideus.com.
Brilliant. I love Don't Divide Us. I think you're fantastic. I speak to Ike EJ quite a lot as well. Went for lunch with him actually a few weeks ago as well. Ike is involved with Don't Divide Us, as is Alka, Seghal, Cuthbert, who's the director of Don't Divide Us. Fantastic organisation, speaking a lot of sense just about these issues. Thank you to Alka.